There is a moment that happens inside a lot of companies right now. Someone in operations or IT proposes a voice AI system, something that can handle inbound calls, answer routine questions, route requests, maybe schedule appointments. The proposal goes up, the leadership team looks at it, and the conversation that follows is almost always the same. Someone says, "Our clients expect to speak to a real person." Someone else says, "We tried something like this before, and it didn't land." And then the proposal gets reframed, usually downward. Instead of a company-wide decision, it becomes a small pilot. Instead of a strategic choice, it becomes a departmental experiment. And the opportunity to think seriously about what this technology actually changes gets quietly shelved. That pattern is not about voice AI specifically. It's about how companies handle decisions they don't fully understand. What you're watching right now is an AI clone, a digital version of me, Ronald, founder of Data Wonder. We build AI automation and voice agent systems for real businesses. Insurance companies, accounting firms, medical clinics, companies where routine communication volume is high, margins matter, and the cost of wasted human time is measurable. I use AI every day, not as a talking point, as infrastructure, which is exactly why I started this channel. Because most of what gets said about AI and business is either too shallow or too speculative to be useful. If you want calm, grounded AI analysis built on real deployment experience, consider subscribing. No hype, no trend chasing, just what actually happens inside companies when this technology gets deployed. Now, back to the meeting room. The reason voice AI keeps getting downgraded from a leadership decision to a departmental experiment is that most companies still treat it as a customer service tool. A better phone menu, a way to reduce call center headcount. That framing is not wrong. Those outcomes are real, but it is incomplete. And incompleteness is expensive. Here is what is actually happening when a business deploys voice AI properly. Every inbound call that used to consume a human employee's time now gets handled without that person. Not just answered, appointment confirmed, claim status checked, invoice question resolved, renewal reminder completed. The human is no longer in the loop for that exchange. And that changes something that most leadership teams do not immediately notice. It changes where human judgment gets spent. Before automation, your best people spent a portion of every day on routine communication. Not because it required their skill, because volume demanded their presence. After automation, that time is released. It becomes available for something else. The question is, what does your company do with it? Most companies do nothing deliberate with it. Time gets absorbed. People fill it with more of the same. The efficiency gain stays invisible because no one redirected the capacity towards something that generates value. That is the first failure mode, and it is organizational, not technical. The second failure mode runs deeper. When voice AI handles a significant portion of your client communication, it becomes a layer of your business operation. It represents your company at the first point of contact. It sets expectations. It shapes perception. It creates or breaks trust. And unlike a human employee, it does not have judgment about when to escalate, when to soften, when a situation is actually sensitive, even if the words being used are routine. That means the design of the system, the logic, the language, the escalation paths, the fallback behavior becomes a leadership decision. Not a vendor decision, not a developer decision, a leadership decision. Because what the system does is a direct reflection of what leadership has decided the client experience should be. Most companies miss this. They hand voice AI implementation to IT or operations. They define success as uptime and call deflection rate. They treat the voice agent as a utility, something that should run quietly in the background without requiring further attention. And then, something unexpected happens. A client feels dismissed by the system and escalates with frustration. A high-value account submits a complaint. A scenario that was not anticipated creates a response that is technically correct, but contextually wrong. And leadership looks surprised, as if the system did something independent of their choices. It didn't. The system did exactly what it was built to do. The problem is that no one with a leadership perspective was involved in defining what it should do. This is the moment where voice AI stops being a technology question and becomes an infrastructure question. Infrastructure is not just what runs. Infrastructure is what everything else depends on. And when your client communication layer is partly or fully automated, your entire service delivery model depends on how that system was designed. That is a leadership responsibility, not a delegation, a responsibility. I want to be specific about what this looks like in practice. In the insurance sector, a voice agent might handle first notice of loss, the initial call a client makes when they need to file a claim. This is one of the most emotionally loaded moments in the client relationship. The client is often stressed. They need clarity and reassurance. If the voice agent handles this well, it frees the human agent to focus on the actual claims process. If it handles it poorly, the client feels abandoned at the worst possible moment. The outcome of that call shapes how the client perceives the entire company for the rest of the relationship. That is not a configuration setting. That is a business design decision, and it should be made by someone who understands what that client relationship is worth. The same logic applies in medical clinics. A voice agent that handles appointment scheduling and follow-up reminders is touching patients at moments of vulnerability. The phrasing matters. The escalation logic matters. The moment the system decides to route to a human matters. These are clinical and operational decisions, not IT decisions. In accounting firms, the communication layer touches compliance timelines, document requests, deadline reminders. Errors in that layer create regulatory exposure. Gaps in that layer create client trust problems. The system has to reflect a precise understanding of how the firm operates and what its obligations are. In every one of these cases, the details that determine whether the system works are leadership-level details. The companies that get results are the ones where senior decision-makers were involved early and stayed involved. The companies that struggle are the ones where leadership handed it off and expected the output to match a standard they never clearly defined. There is a second-order effect here that deserves attention. When voice AI becomes part of your infrastructure, when it is handling a real volume of client interactions, it also becomes a data asset. Every call is a signal. What clients ask about, what they complain about, where they get confused, where they disengage. This information has always existed, but it was buried in unstructured human memory, distributed across employees, never captured, never analyzed. A voice AI system changes that. If it is designed correctly, it surfaces patterns. It shows you what your clients actually experience, not what you think they experience. That is an insight layer. And an insight layer, managed well, informs product decisions, staffing decisions, communication strategy, even pricing. Most companies do not use it that way. They deploy the voice agent, measure deflection, and stop. The data sits in a dashboard that no one checks. The insight layer never gets built. Another efficiency gain stays invisible. The companies that treat voice AI as infrastructure, as something that leadership owns, designs, monitors, and learns from, are the ones extracting the full value. The companies that treat it as a tool they bought are the ones wondering why the results are mediocre. The calm takeaway here is straightforward. Voice AI is no longer a customer service experiment. It is becoming a structural layer of how companies operate. That means the decisions that shape its design, escalation logic, client experience standards, data use, are leadership decisions. Not because the technology is complicated, because the consequences reach into the core of how your business functions. If your company is evaluating voice AI right now, the right question is not which vendor should we use. The right question is who in this organization owns the outcome, and do they have the authority and understanding to make the decisions that will determine whether it works? If you have a clear answer to that question, you are already ahead of most companies. If the answer is unclear, that is where to start. I would genuinely like to know where your organization is on this. Are you treating voice AI as a tool or as infrastructure? Leave a comment. The distinction matters more than most leadership teams currently realize. If you would like to explore how voice AI could work inside your specific business and what a proper deployment actually looks like, you can book a free call with me. The link is right below this video.